I'm Jeremy Wade, extreme angler.
I'm gonna have to go for a swim.
And underwater detective. When you've spent as much time around monster fish as I have, sometimes you forget how truly bizarre they are.
I don't want that going anywhere near me.
But these are aliens on our own planet. Creatures from the prehistoric past.
Look at that!
And sci-fi future.
Are they feeding? Are they breeding?
Evolutionary miracles.
Clocks at nearly 70 miles an hour.
Look at the size of this!
And spectacular freaks of nature.
A real monstrous beast.
Every investigation I undertake brings me face to face with these extraordinary monsters.
That is huge!
Ah, look at that, look at that, look at that, look at that!
Join me on a wild journey into the extraterrestrial world of aquatic aliens.
Good grief! Here we go. I've seen this thing myself. I know it exists.
In the world of aquatic aliens, a fish's weaponry is often what makes it stand out. The barbs, blades, tentacles and toxins that fish have evolved either for defense or attack. Man has always tried to mimic what nature does best. But the ultimate workshop for a really vicious weapon is a tough environment. Molded by the need to survive and fight, fish end up with some really bizarre accessories.
An investigation into bloody attacks in the Australian outback has taken me deep into the wild northwest of the country, onto the Fitzroy River. I'm after one of the strangest monsters I've ever heard of. And my hunt has led me into the very heart of Aborigine territory. This is one of the last strongholds for a truly prehistoric beast.
In the morning, I saw something. I saw a big school of mullet all cruising, and they all sort of huddling together. This massive saw came up between them, and it just went bang, 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 faster than a speeding bullet, as they say. The saw on that, I measured it from memory, was around about 8 foot long.
The saw?
Massive. Yeah, the saw itself. Yeah, it's huge. Now, if you get hit in the leg or the arm or the stomach, it's not a pretty sight. It'd almost be worse than a crocodile bite because it's a rip right through like this, you know, and then they'd come back and they'd hit you 2 or 3 times.
The creature that caused this carnage has changed little since the age of the dinosaurs. It can grow to over 20 feet in length and boasts a lethal weapon that gives it its name: the sawfish. With a mouth like a stingray, fins like a shark, and a uniquely vicious snout, the sawfish is like nothing else in the water. These rare giants have all but disappeared from the planet, but I've been told there's a chance of tracking one down in Australia's tribal heartland. The Aborigines have lived with these predators for at least 50,000 years. Sawfish feature in their tribal dances, and in one of their Dreamtime stories, the animal uses its huge saw to gouge out the rivers of the land. The Aborigines know better than anyone how dangerous these prehistoric beasts can be.
We stand well away from it. We tell them it's too dangerous to hang around while it's still alive and kicking.
The savage potential of this ready-made weapon certainly hasn't been lost on humans.
There are records of sawfish rostrums being used as weapons right across the Western Pacific, from the Philippines down through New Guinea as far as New Zealand. They'd use it to slice open the abdomens of their enemies and also to open up the veins on the inside of the elbows, causing fatal bleeding. And even just a couple of years ago here in Australia, a couple of burglars attacked a man in a caravan using a sawfish rostrum, and they put him in hospital.
So I've been warned, but not deterred. However, despite my best efforts, this search is proving fruitless. I'm pulling in monsters,
Oh, it's a shark, it's a shark.
but not the one I'm after.
This estuary is just full of predators.
Finally, I'm told about a secret spot that the indigenous people say is a hunting ground for sawfish. It's desolate, but there seems to be an unusual energy to the place. People have lived here for tens of thousands of years, and their spirits seem to haunt the shadows. With each passing hour, I feel more like a trespasser in someone else's world. I'm acutely aware that I'm being watched.
Oh. Fish on, fish on! Yeah. Good size, good size. Oh, it's a sawfish, it's a sawfish. Here we go, my first sawfish. Look at this for a beast. This thing nearly 7 foot long, it's bigger than I am. And that rostrum on there, that's 1.5 feet long. It's got 39 of those teeth. Each one is about 1 inch long, wickedly sharp. It's about to tense. We're about to have a splash. Yeah, here we go. Yeah.
Finally, I'm hands-on with the sawfish, the aquatic alien that wields what's possibly the weirdest weapon of them all.
In the realm of weird underwater monsters, you are what you eat. You need big teeth to cut through flesh, or a huge mouth to suck in unsuspecting prey, or even a sword to stun and immobilize your next meal. But what if your favorite food is blood? On land, this is the preserve of vampires, cannibals, and these guys, leeches. But what kind of nightmarish bloodsuckers exist beneath the waves that will attempt to draw the very life out of your veins?
I'm in North America on the hunt for an aquatic vampire with a taste for human blood.
I was in the midst of a 129-mile swim of the entire length of the lake. So I reached down to brush whatever it was on my leg off. And I touched a living thing that was attached to me.
I'm in the US, investigating a bizarre bloodsucker that's been terrorizing swimmers.
The next image that I saw when I put my goggles in was snake-like. I ended up pulling it off, and the first time I pull it off, it shot back on. They don't want to be removed. So I got a hold of the thing finally, and I managed to throw it. So I remember seeing it like in the air, like a snake flailing around and go fall.
So this thing that's on your leg, it's writhing around, what was it?
It turned out to be about 3.5, 4 foot long sea lamprey.
Sea lampreys are survivors from the depths of time. Like aquatic vampires, the adults are blood parasites that attach to other fish to feed when in the ocean. But they head into freshwater to spawn. Their mouths are made up of a powerful suction disc lined with rows of teeth. In the center lies the ultimate weapon, a piston-like tongue tipped with more teeth, which bores its way into its host. Once attached, it may feed for hours, days, or even weeks, growing fat on its prey's blood.
They're extremely fast, extremely aggressive, they're very hard to fight, they're very difficult to kill, and they want your blood and nutrients.
But what exactly are they, and why are they attacking humans? Dr. Ellen Marsden has become a specialist in these resilient bloodsuckers, which are commonly confused with eels. But this is by far the most ancient river monster I've ever attempted to catch.
It doesn't have a bony backbone. It has no bones in the body at all. It's so primitive, it doesn't even have a true jaw. It has no lower mandible. It can't bite.
So the predation is all about this structure on the front, is it?
Right. And it's rather deceptive because you think, wow, all those teeth. They are teeth, but not in the way we think of them. They're not to bite. These are just grippers. It's like having gripper gloves to be able to grab something that's slimy. The thing that does the damage is actually down here in the mouth itself. So it has a tongue, much like the eel has a tongue, and on that tongue are chisel-like teeth. So this tongue is acting like a piston. It's going to come out, and actually it rasps a hole in a fish. And again, it can't bite, so having rasped a hole into the fish, it's then going to use suction to suck body fluids, blood, and other material out of that hole that it's just made.
To understand this monster, I need to get my hands on a live one. So I've traveled to Oregon, where a larger species of lamprey comes to breed on the Willamette River. Here, at the biggest waterfalls in the Pacific Northwest, I'm going vampire hunting. These ghoulish monsters can't be caught with rod and line, so I'll be attempting to catch them by hand. I'll be working blind. The only aids I have are cotton gloves to improve my grip on these slimy, serpent-like creatures.
No, nothing there.
The sound is deafening. I can barely hear.
We're going to have to get further into the falls.
The slick basalt is lethal. If I slip, I could be forced under and pinned down by the thundering water. I wouldn't be the first person to drown here. The only way to prise the creatures off is to get right behind their mouths, but they're in a very deep crevice.
And there it is. This is a real first for me. This is a fish that can't be caught on a bait, on a rod and line. And there are the 3 fangs. Even though I've now got one in my hands, the lamprey is still a very hard creature to pin down. And with its snake-like body, its vampire-like feeding habits, you can well understand why for some people this has become the stuff of nightmares.
One spine-chilling aquatic alien is bad enough, but imagine a beast that combines elements of 2 creatures. A horrifying hybrid like this. It's known as a Fiji mermaid, half monkey, half fish. Monsters like this were originally sewn together by fishermen in Japan, probably for religious purposes. But composite creatures later became popular as attractions in travelling shows and circuses, presented as proof of the existence of bizarre beings. It's weird stuff, and normally limited to the world of the imagination. But when I heard that underwater deaths in the Bahamas were being blamed on a frightening fusion of shark and octopus, I had to investigate.
I've been lured in by the bizarre tale of a horrifying creature, concealed within the unexplored watery labyrinths beneath these islands.
So this is a blue hole. This is actually in the middle of the island. Very clear water, very dark water. It's quite a spooky feeling.
Victims have been plucked from the crystal clear surface, never to be seen again. It seems that the idyllic waters of the Bahamas are harboring a killer.
3 kids left and 2 come back.
There was nothing found whatsoever.
Nothing. You don't find any remains. There's nothing, no clothing, nothing. And this always goes to the folklore that the Lusca monster's taken them. It's a half shark, half octopus type creature.
Do you believe that the Lusca exists?
I believe that there's a Lusca monster in the blue hole, definitely. Something that has this amount of labyrinths. Anything could be under there.
Underneath Andros Island lies a hidden network of passages through the rock. Where these tunnels rise to the surface, they form what are known as blue holes. Tales abound of sightings in these mysterious azure sinkholes.
We were fishing for Dorado, and we happened to come across this strange animal. I thought it was a whale shark, but getting within 50 feet of it, found out it was a strange animal with tentacles and the head of a shark. The head was kind of similar to a mako shark, has a real pointed nose.
And how long were the tentacles?
The tentacles was the last thing we saw. The whole thing was about 8 feet. Yeah.
I mean, do you think this could have been a Lusca you saw even?
It could have been. So I'll always remember that until the day I die.
The waters around Andros are home to a huge number of sharks. And with new animal species recorded every year, is it possible that some type of shark is behind the legend of the Lusca? Whatever beast is navigating these watery labyrinths would need to be as maneuverable as it is ferocious, able to thread through tight and twisting tunnels that are clearly alien territory for sharks. So I'm looking for something else, and I have a hunch that the deeper reaches of these uncharted caverns are off limits to humans. To have a chance of encountering the shape-shifting beast I suspect is behind these attacks, I head to Puget Sound in Washington State, where commercial diver Ron Alt has a promising lead.
All of a sudden, the octopus arms went all the way around me, and all I felt was the beak on top of my head. The mass started squeezing over to one side. Every suction cup that I could feel against the suit, my hands, my face, I could not get away. As far as I knew, I could have drowned right at that moment.
To face this terrifying monster, I must step out of my comfort zone and into its domain. Predatory, fast, and dangerously intelligent, these freakish shapeshifters are not to be underestimated. Octopus can grow to an enormous size, potentially up to 25 feet across. But as they have no skeleton, navigating tiny passageways like those under Andros Island would present few problems.
What we've got here looks like it is an octopus den. And the thing is not to be deceived by the size of the opening.
My hunt for a horrifying hybrid has led me right into the den of a true alien of the deep.
What we've got here looks like it is an octopus den. And the thing is not to be deceived by the size of the opening. Well, this is the giant Pacific octopus.
A creature like this would have no difficulty penetrating the rocky passageways beneath Andros.
It just squeezes through these tiny little gaps. It seems to disappear and then reappear again. Very impressive animal.
And when it goes from walking to swimming, this shapeshifter does indeed look somewhat shark-like. Is this how the hybrid legend originated?
What an encounter. They grow bigger than this, but this is an impressive animal.
Aquatic oddities can be found in the most extraordinary places, and sometimes they're not even in the water. This is a lungfish. During periods of drought, this ancient beast secretes a layer of mucus around itself, which dries into a cocoon. It can live out of water like this for up to 4 years. But it's one thing for a harmless river monster to adapt to cope without water. It's a completely different ballgame when a foreign fish with a fearsome reputation leaves the river to terrorize us in our own backyards.
When I'm hunting for a river monster that isn't restricted to the water, that's when things get really weird. An aggressive serpentine invader was whipping up a frenzy in the US media, its ability to breathe out of water adding a horrifying dimension to the hysteria. The attack of the snakeheads.
This just sort of took off and it exploded with the media. People were calling in and saying, do we have to worry about our children being attacked on the way to school? Can we leave our pets outside in the yard, or will the snakeheads eat them?
It seemed no one was safe from this Frankenfish. Ponds were poisoned and the government went all out in a military attack to try and terminate these alien invaders. I've had dealings with invasive species in the US before. These are silver carp.
There's up to 13 tons of these fish for every mile in the river.
Collisions aside, silver carp are not dangerous. But the aggressive snakehead could be a much more serious issue if it were to explode out of control.
And this is what happens when they feed them live fish.
These predatory fish prefer their food alive.
People always talk about predators being aggressive, but I mean, most predators actually kill for a reason. They need food. But these fish here, they just seem to kill as a reflex. They'll bite something in half and then just leave it to die.
I need to see this fish for myself. I never expected to be fishing for creatures that have been branded worse than piranhas in a quiet residential area. But this is where the snakehead invaders were first sighted, here in South Florida.
Good shot.
Oh, did you see that?
Yeah, let drop. And set the hook.
That is a fish on.
I've been stalking the snakehead, a freakish Frankenfish whose arrival in US waters triggered a kill-on-sight policy by local authorities.
That is a fish on. That one came out right from the side, didn't it? That came out 4 or 5 feet.
I've hooked my first snakehead, and what it lacks in size, it more than makes up for with attitude.
Oh. There we go. That's it. So now I've actually got my hands on one of these things, I can see why it's called a snakehead. And this particular one is called a bullseye snakehead. It's got this eye spot on the tail. Have a look inside the mouth. There we go. That's definitely the mouth of a predator. Very long, thin, still muscular fish. I think very often, you know, fish which are long and quite snake-like, you know, do give quite strong fights. Aquatic species that remind us of land-based animals can be shocking and unsettling, but nothing shivers the spine like the idea of an underwater monster with human characteristics, especially one that's suspected of preying on our children. I'm in the buzzing metropolis of Tokyo, a place that straddles the worlds of modernity and superstition, on the trail of an ancient water monster ingrained in Japanese culture, the kappa. A beast that is said to vacuum up souls and snatch children. Everyone I speak to seems to know about this legendary monster. Flat head, webbed fingers, mottled skin.
Has a tail as well.
This is a story that a lot of people know.
It's clear that the kappa is very much alive in the public imagination. There's even a shrine dedicated to this strange water monster.
So that is the kappa. Fascinating looking creature. Almost humanoid in some ways, 4 limbs, but then it's got these claws, 3 claws on each limb, and almost like fish scales. You know, it's obviously a very, very powerful mental image that people have.
I desperately want to see this bizarre fish with hands for myself. I've been told of a man who's studying the real-life beast behind the legend. He shows me a skeleton unlike any I've ever seen.
It does look very fish-like. I mean, it looks a bit like a mixture between catfish, lungfish, and eel.
Dr. Tochimoto tells me it belongs to a uniquely Japanese animal, the Hanzaki, or Japanese giant salamander.
That could easily grab hold of my hand.
It lives in cool, clear rivers and grows to nearly 6 feet. This creature is capable of inflicting serious injury. Despite this, Dr. Tochimoto has agreed to take me out to look for one. The current is surprisingly strong, and I wasn't entirely sure where this beast would be hiding. But I think I've hit the jackpot.
There's a tail sticking out, about 4 or 5 foot down in the water, but it's right underneath this rock. So hold the tail, grab tight.
Okay.
Okay, so grab tight, and then in the net. Okay, I'm worried it might double round and have a go at me.
Protected only by my Kevlar gloves, I'm about to try and catch one of these bizarre beasts by hand. I'm in Japan for hand-to-hand combat with a river monster that has a grisly reputation as a child snatcher. I have caught a Hanzaki, better known as the Japanese giant salamander, one of the largest salamanders in the world, and the creature that I believe is behind the legend of the kappa. They get bigger than this, but wow, this creature is aggressive, even though we mean it no harm. The good thing is that these guys, unlike fish, are just as at home on land as they are in the water.
And I'm very pleased that even with my gloves on, my hands stayed away from that mouth. He wasn't too amused by the fact that he was just pulled out of his hole like that. But this, I think, is the creature I've been after. Looks a bit like a fish, but it's got hands. And that's exactly what this has got.
Now, if you saw one of these down in your local stream, I can fully understand you not wanting your child to go swimming there.
With few competitors, the Japanese giant salamander has no call for elaborate defense mechanisms and can make do with its impressive bite. But if you come from a time before teeth and a primitive gene pool, then survival beats style every time, even if your defense technique ends up being downright disgusting.
For the weirdest of all monsters, you have to go way back in time. I've handled some truly bizarre prehistoric beasts, such as this spookfish.
It's got a sharp, venomous spine on the dorsal fin there.
And the alligator gar.
And that's a double row of teeth it's got on the upper jaw.
But an investigation in Canada's remote Pacific Southwest has led me to a primitive monster like no other. I've teamed up with a group of scientists who want to understand this bizarre creature's truly revolting defense mechanism.
What we're going to do is put some bait on the bottom, but not on a hook. And what's enticing them in is semi-fermented dead fish. Oof.
Now we just have to sit tight and wait for the feast to begin. The strings of jelly-like slime are a repulsive signal of our success.
Lovely. This is pretty horrible. These are coming in just covered in slime, and here there's something moving inside. I think the only way I'm going to get those out is to put a hand in and pull. There we go. Oh. Not the most pleasant of sensations. It's quite a big haul, and they're all the same thing. They're all hagfish.
Hagfish look like giant worms, but in evolutionary terms, they're more like the most primitive vertebrates on the planet.
What I've got in my hand here, this hagfish, is actually what could be called a living fossil, because in terms of body plan, this creature has remained pretty well unchanged for something like 300 to 500 million years.
Hagfish don't have jaws, but they do have teeth to rasp away at the carcasses of dead marine animals, which they eat from the inside out, while sheltering inside their corpses. But even though they lack the dentition of more advanced predators, these primitive monsters are far from defenseless.
This slime that hagfish produce, what the hagfish is actually doing, it's secreting filaments of protein with little sort of mucus globules strung out along them. And when this mucus hits the water, it just bulks up incredibly. And it's pretty clearly a defense mechanism. If you are a predatory fish and you grab hold of a hagfish, if you don't let go pretty sharpish, your gills are going to be clogged up with this stuff. So this is probably why these things have survived such an incredibly long time.
As unpalatable as hagfish slime may look, believe it or not, in Korean cooking, it's used as a substitute for egg white. Delicious. We think we know our planet, but most of it is alien to us. More people have set foot on the moon than have journeyed to the bottom of our deepest seas. Mars is better mapped than the Mariana Trench. So what weird and wonderful creatures are waiting to be discovered, miles beneath the waves?
My hunt for the beast behind the sea serpent legend has taken me across the globe. I've heard stories and seen pictures. It's a fish called the oarfish, and it is found throughout the world, but it's only found in very deep seawater. It doesn't come into rivers. It's estimated that oarfish can grow up to 50 feet in length, but sightings are unbelievably rare. They're usually only ever seen at the surface when they're dying or washed up on shores, already dead. But now, I may have the unique opportunity to see one for myself. I've had a tip-off that oarfish have been spotted near a buoy off the French coast. It appears that they are swimming up the anchor chain from their deep-water layers to within 100 feet of the surface. For some reason, nobody knows exactly why the oarfish swim up the line. Nobody can say exactly when they're going to do that, but I'm just hoping that there will be one occasion when the fish is there and I am also in the water. Even though the oarfish are tantalizingly close, I'll still have to dive deep. This could be more demanding than any underwater mission I've had before. This is an extreme form of diving known as blue water diving, where the sea floor is way out of sight. And with no frame of reference, even professional divers can get disorientated. This big blue is another world. It's like nothing I've ever seen before. The jellyfish and sea salps look like they come from another planet. 80 feet down, I feel like I'm floating in outer space. But I'm struggling to control my buoyancy in the strong swell, and the effort I'm having to expend is making me tired and increasingly uncomfortable.
Do you read me? Over. Probably here I'm panting a bit. Water coming in my mask. No, I'm not doing totally well for the moment.
Jeremy, you okay, fella?
My quest to seek out a deep-sea aquatic alien has left me struggling 80 feet beneath the waves. This is as close to the surface as the elusive oarfish is reported to rise here, but is proving too deep for me.
I think I'm probably about ready to come out.
Just take a few minutes and try and get your breathing in check.
Struggling in these alien surroundings, I fear I may have pushed myself too far. I'm relieved to be back on the boat, but I'm physically exhausted. Actually quite tired. Clearly, getting face to face with a real-life sea serpent is going to take me to my absolute limit. But I won't get this chance again. For mine and the oarfish's worlds to collide, we'll have to meet in a place where neither of us belong. This is my last chance to see the ultimate aquatic alien. Back down in the eerie black depths, struggling to control both my body and mind, I wait.
There it is. This is incredible. This is absolutely incredible. I think more people have seen the Earth from space than have seen one of these this close. Such an outlandish looking thing. I won't even touch it. I actually touched it.
Even so close, it's hard to judge its length, but I estimate it's about 2.5 times my height.
Very, very fast and maneuverable. Doesn't flex the body. Just the fin undulating like a wave.
Oarfish don't have swim bladders, so they can move very rapidly up and down the water column.
Seem to be definitely using the chain as a point of reference. Really follow this up. Look at this. 1 minute it wasn't there, and then suddenly it's right next to me. I can scarcely believe this. It almost came out of another dimension.
I feel so privileged to be in the presence of one of the most elusive creatures on the planet. And just as I think, it can't get any better.
There's two. There's two. Incredible. Why do they do this? Why are they here? Are they feeding? Are they breeding?
Some of my encounters with monsters remain so unbelievable that if it wasn't for our footage, I'm not sure I'd believe that they'd happened.
For me, fishing is a passport to a world of the weird and the wonderful. Casting a line brings me face to face with alien visitors to our terrestrial shores before I return them to their own aquatic extraterrestrial realm. In my quest to find out more, I'll continue to fish on.